Over the past few days, the security situation in Israel and the West Bank has become extremely volatile, and we've seen countless terror attacks over the past few days. I'm joined now by our military affairs reporter, Yaakov Lapin, to shed some light on the current situation. Thanks for joining me, Yaakov.
Thanks for having me.
The words third intifada have been thrown around a lot over the past week. What can you tell us from a military perspective? How's this seen?
From the military's perspective, we're in the middle of a significant wave of terrorism and violence, but we are not in a third intifada. In order for the military and military intelligence to consider what we're seeing now as a third intifada, other things would have to happen. For example, there would have to be mass rioting in the West Bank, not several hundred rioters, but tens of thousands. Those are the kinds of numbers we saw in the second intifada. And there would have to be a significant involvement of the Tanzim Fatah terror group, which is not under the command of PA President Mahmoud Abbas. These are heavily armed gunmen who are scattered throughout the territories. At the moment, they're not involved in anything that's going on. If they become involved, then we'd be heading in the direction of something that looks more like an intifada. Right now, what we're seeing is a series of lone attackers, Palestinians launching knife attacks based on their own decision to go ahead and do that. They're acting under the influence of incitement to violence and hatred that's coming from the Islamic movement, coming from Hamas, this false pretext of an Israeli plot against the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is a complete falsehood, but it's being propagated. There's a well-oiled propaganda machine. And also the standing of the Palestinian Authority and its security forces is also taking a hit. It's weakening in it's been weakened in recent weeks and months. So all of these are combining to produce this current wave of violence. But as far as the defense establishment here is concerned, we're not looking at a third intifada as of now. It could become one, but we're not there at the moment.
Okay. What about the involvement of Arab Israelis? We have seen, riots now in certain Arab Israeli towns, even in Jaffa. It's obviously more difficult from a security perspective to control these situations. So, what implications does this have?
It's a pretty disturbing development that in the past sort of 2 to 3 days we've seen riots in places like Yafo and in Lod and in the north a little bit. They're still small in number and the number of participants are small, relatively small. But I would say that all of these are being influenced by the poisonous rhetoric of the Islamic movement. It's able to spread its reach within certain sections of the Arab Israeli community. Clearly, the vast majority of Arab Israelis have no part to play in any of this violence, and they haven't taken any role in this. But there's a small minority that has, and I think that the police and the Shin Bet intelligence agency are going to have to really think about how to deal with the Islamic movement, which is a really destabilizing factor within Israeli society. It's really, in many ways, Hamas's voice in Israel, and it's a threat that should not be taken lightly.
Netanyahu's announced some measures in the past few days as well. I mean, how effective do you think these measures are?
I think some of them will be effective in terms of most of what he's talked about is Jerusalem. It's flooding Jerusalem with security forces. It's trying to disconnect the Temple Mount from the current wave of violence. It's trying to stabilize the situation. And I think some of these steps will be helpful. However, there are certainly voices within the defense establishment that say that it won't be enough. You can't just put out this fire only with security measures. Security measures are absolutely necessary, but there has to be some semblance of a diplomatic process to help cool the atmosphere. This is a message that I've heard consistently from the defense establishment, and time will tell whether anything along those lines will occur. But there are definitely voices that are advocating this sort of combined approach: firm security steps, the insertion of 4 battalions into the West Bank, which has had a good influence on the situation there, but also trying to sort of kickstart a diplomatic process which will help cool the atmosphere.